The Vikings, whom people know today as aggressive raiders, were just a partial representation of the people of a fantastic culture. In fact, this image of the Vikings represents only a small faction within the populace of the Norsemen. The majority of Norsemen were farmers, merchants, and some were craftsmen. Sadly, not many people nowadays talk about the art and craft of Vikings, which is why we are here today to reveal some of the secrets concerning the excellent talents of the Vikings and their work, which is still present today. Some surprises await you. Viking art was not limited to weapons and ships. It actually comprised a rich artistic tradition that rose as early as the end of the 8th century to around 1100 AD, and did not only include Scandinavia, but also throughout Europe where they sited themselves. The Norse people cared about beauty and quality and could utilize their tools and materials to create beautiful items. Either through trade or forceful imposition upon other lands, many pieces are now identified as Norse in various parts of the world. Most of the Viking art we know about today comes from objects made of tougher materials like metal and stone. These materials have proved to be more durable than wood or cloth, which deteriorates easily and will not last many centuries. Metal jewelry found at Viking burials and buried treasure included containers and other everyday utilitarian items. Archaeologists have also come across carved ivory and bone and quite a few textiles, as well as stone carvings. While jewelry could sometimes be crafted from bronze, which was one of the most valuable metals, Viking craftsmen were savvy. They would plate it with a thin layer of gold or silver to make it look more expensive. This technique allowed them to make beautiful pieces without needing the rarest metals. Interestingly, most Viking artists and craftsmen are unknown since they didn't usually sign their work. The only exception was rune artists, who carved their names into stones or other objects. Viking art styles and trends spread across different regions because of traveling craftsmen, traders, missionaries, and even warriors. While Viking art kept its own unique look, it also reflected some international influences. According to archaeologist Ibn Skibsted Klesø, this was because Vikings had a lot of contact with other cultures, and it wasn't just raiding. Viking traders brought back new ideas and objects from their travels, even before the traditional start of the Viking Age in around 793. This mixture of local and foreign influences helped shape Viking art into something extraordinary. One thing the Vikings were famous for was their ships. They were expert shipbuilders and incredible navigators, allowing them to sail long distances across dangerous seas. But Viking technology wasn't just about ships and weapons. They were innovators in many areas, using their skills to create tools, jewelry, and everyday items essential to their way of life. Vikings were known for using brooches. Viking brooches were not only beautiful, but also manufactured in large quantities. They are one of the most identifying artifacts of Viking people. The brooches were a symbol of gender, social status, and sometimes even ethnicity of the individuals who wore them. Scientists have been analyzing them for decades and are fleshing out new ways that they may have been created. Evidence of brooch making has been found in Viking towns, including molds and crucibles which were used to melt the metals. The crucibles often still have traces of metal left in them. Vikings would pour the melted metal into molds to create their brooches. These molds were made by pressing existing jewelry pieces or lead models into clay, allowing for minor design changes. Another common Viking jewelry item was glass bead necklaces. These beads, often displayed in museums, were made by carefully melting colored glass in Scandinavian towns. Archaeologists have discovered that the raw glass came from colored square blocks called tesserae, originally used for mosaics in the Mediterranean. It's still unclear whether Vikings traded for these tesserae or if they took them during their raids on Byzantine churches, but they were highly valued and traveled far to reach the Viking craftsmen. Animal bones were among the most important materials for making everyday objects like knife handles and even ice skates. Bone was tough, flexible, and easy to find, so many things could be made quickly without much skill. However, making Viking hair combs was different. They required a lot of time and expertise. Viking combs were large, beautifully decorated, and took days to make. Craftsmen used specialized tools like saws, rasps, and polishers to shape the combs. They preferred to use deer antlers because they were strong and easier to carve into intricate designs. Even with outside influences, Nordic art stayed true to its roots for a long time. A distinct style was common in Nordic countries and appeared not only in visual arts but also in poetry. The Vikings also had a very interesting style of making their art. The Brourg style is known as the first period of Viking art, lasting from the second half of the 8th century to the middle of the 9th century. This style gets its name from two important archaeological finds: a man's grave in Broa, Gotland, Sweden, and a woman's grave in Oseberg, Norway. At Broa, archaeologists found bronze pieces that were part of horse bridles, showing how the Vikings decorated even practical items. The Oseberg find is even more famous because it's the richest Viking grave ever discovered. The woman buried there was placed inside a beautifully carved ship with many grave offerings such as textiles and carved wooden items like a cart, sleds, bed frames, and decorations with animal heads. The Broa Oseberg style is known for its hard-to-identify animal figures. These animals have curved bodies and limbs that seem to twist and turn, sometimes even turning into other animals. Some of the finest Viking textiles were found in the Oseberg grave and are among the few surviving examples of Viking fabric art. Another style is the Bor Viking Art style. This style, which lasted from the first half of the 9th century to the second half of the 10th century, is named after a burial ship found in Bor, Norway. This style developed from the earlier Broa Oseberg style. Bor Art is known for its braided patterns that look like chain links, creating symmetrical designs. It also features more animal figures with gripping limbs, which are even more detailed than before. The craftsmanship reached a higher level of detail, especially in techniques like filigree and granulation, which involved creating fine patterns and textures. In addition to the famous Bor horse bridle pieces, this style can be seen in brooches found in Denmark and Sweden. The next one is the Jelling Viking art style. What makes the Jelling style unique is the S-shaped animal figures, which often look like dragons. The animals are shown from the side with open jaws, sometimes showing fangs and a distinctive fold over their upper lip. The bodies of these creatures are more structured than those in the earlier Bor style. The animals have long, curving bodies and ladder-like patterns and spiral shapes resembling plant vines, and their limbs sometimes intertwine. Another one is the Mammon style, which developed gradually from the Jelling style. It's sometimes hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. Some people even see it as a bridge between Jelling and the later Ringerike style. One of the best-known examples of the Mammon style is the Mammon axe, found in Jutland, which is decorated with images of a bird and a human face. Another masterpiece is the Bamberg chest, said to have belonged to Empress Kunigunde, which is decorated with intricate carvings in walrus ivory. In the Mammon style, animals become bolder and more noticeable, with larger spiral patterns. For the first time, we also see clearly defined plant shapes like shoots, tendrils, and leaves, which add to the richness of the design. However, perhaps the Urnes Viking art style is the most popular one. The Ura style, named by archaeologist Haakon Shetelig in 1909, is based on the decorations found on the north portal of the wooden church in Urnes, Norway. This style was popular from the second half of the 11th century to the first half of the 12th century. The Ura style is known for being elegant and bold. The animal figures are slender with long necks and stylized heads with almond-shaped eyes. Their limbs, when shown, are thinner than their bodies, giving them a graceful look. Often animals in this style are shaped like bands or snakes, and dragons also appear, possibly inspired by Anglo-Saxon designs. Another unique feature is the use of asymmetry, with an exciting mix of thick and thin lines. The style also includes interlacing patterns with S-shaped or figure-of-8 shaped lines winding around each other. The most famous example of the Ura style is the richly carved wooden portal at the Ura church, which dates back to the mid-11th century. This is the only complete piece of the style found in Norway, though other examples like the portal at the wooden church in Torpo also showcase this beautiful art style. Even though the Vikings are no longer around, their legacy lives on in many ways. We remember them through their annual festivals, but we also have some amazing Viking art that still exists today. Besides the art, the Vikings also left behind crafts that give us a glimpse into their world. Their creativity and adventurous spirit continue to inspire us today.